And now, to give his opening address, may we call on Dr. Taleb Rifai, the Secretary of the ASEAN, or the United Nations World Tourism Organization.
Excellency President Aquino, it is an honor and a privilege to have you with us today. Thank you for your support for the tourism sector and for your continued leadership in advancing contribution of tourism to the sustainable and inclusive development of the Philippines. Your presence today is a clear and strong message, and we read it loud and clear. I still carry vivid and very special memories of the first time I had the privilege to meet you in 2012, and I keep recalling those memories. Thank you for being with us. Secretary Jimenez, what can I say? We have become such good friends in such a short period of time. You and your team have been incredible. You represent the best of what Philippines stands for: warmth, professionalism, dedication, and love for the mankind. Thank you so much for all your efforts. Governor Salcida, you definitely have livened up the scene. It is wisdom that made you the first speaker, not only stature. You are a wonderful leader with a great sense of optimism and hope. Thank you for hosting us. Mayor Rosal, I enjoyed your company very much in the last few days. Marianne Sereng, Ramon Peaje, and Mar Roxas, and I hope I pronounced them right, although I live in Spain, but I still have a problem with the pronunciation of the Spanish names. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 2 days, in the last 48 hours, Mr. President, I visited two of the most affected areas, Bohol and Tacloban. And I must say that I have seen with my own eyes this magnitude of the calamity. But I must say that there are two thoughts that came to my mind in these last 48 hours. One is the incredibly wonderful caliber of your civil servants. It is rare in the world of today to see governors, mayors, secretaries, undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, down to the lowest and to the most junior bureaucrat operating in the way they operate. I congratulate you, and I congratulate the Philippines on the caliber of your public servants. But two, while driving through the streets of Tacloban, I had two mixed feelings in my mind. So touched, so emotionally moved by the magnitude of the calamity, but at the very same time, it was incredible how I felt that the courage and the strength of the people just overpowered all of that. I did not see rubbles. I saw smiles. I saw high spirits. I saw beautiful, beautiful people rising above their calamity. Not even the most devastating typhoon in the history of the Philippines is able to wipe out the smiles and the hope that you have injected in your people and in their future. They are wonderful people, and we are very privileged, very lucky to be with you today and to associate ourselves with whatever we can do to help the Philippines. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of the delegates here at the UNWTO-ASEAN International Conference on Tourism and Climate Change in this beautiful city of Legazpi. The city which is the home of Mount Mayon. Mount Mayon was a bit shy and polite today. It reveals itself gradually in the morning, but by the end of the day it shows who's the real boss here. It's a wonderful, wonderful mountain, and I enjoyed touring around it. Your Excellency asked me about it. It was wonderful. It was even polite enough to clear out all the fog and all the clouds when we arrived there. And then after that, it just came back the way it should always be. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, Travel and tourism has become a central global phenomena in the 21st century. Last year alone, 1,087,000,000 international travelers crossed borders in 1 year. That is 1 out of 7 of the people of the world making an international trip every year outside of their own countries. In addition to 5.5 to 6 billion estimated domestic trips within national boundaries. While doing that, international travelers generated $1.4 trillion in a single year, creating 1 out of 11 jobs all over the world, contributing 9% to world GDP and 30% of world trade in services. The growth of the travel and tourism has been impressive in the last 2 decades, especially if we consider that there were economic difficulties, geopolitical challenges that are obvious and clear to everybody. Still, travel continues to grow. It has surpassed the stage of becoming a human need into becoming a human right, and it's unstoppable human activity that will continue to grow if we know how to harness it right. Asia and Pacific has been a star performance in the last few years. Last year it grew at a rate of 6%. The revenues, the receipts from travel and tourism in Asia Pacific grew at an average of 8% as well. The Philippines has been a noteworthy story as well. It registered a double-digit growth both in receipts and in arrivals. These positive results are still hampered yet today by some of the most important challenges that we need to address. Some of the challenges are material, are immediate, and are short-term. We still need to make sure that our visitors come smoother and easier to destinations. Travel facilitation is still an obstacle. Visa facilitation is still an obstacle. Connectivity is still a barrier. We need to arrive to our destinations, especially destinations as beautiful as the Philippines, island destinations that can only be reached by air. Yet, the most critical of challenges of all is the challenge of sustainability, one that is going to stay with us for a long period of time. It is meeting the needs of present tourists and host regions while protecting and promoting opportunities for the future. We need to promote a model that is conceived as a way to manage all resources so that they can meet the economic, social and environmental needs while respecting cultural integrity, essential ecological processes, biological diversity and life support system. This is the overarching challenge that brings us today to this meeting. Climate change, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the greatest defies of our time, posing immense threats to sustainable development and poverty eradication. I would use the words of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, in his opening speech at the Climate Change Summit a few years ago. He said, and I quote, "The preeminent geopolitical and economic issue of 20th century is climate change. It rewrites the global equation for development, peace and prosperity. It goes beyond the climate into our life, our very, very existence. Rising sea levels, warmer sea temperatures and increasing storm frequencies are becoming more rampant than ever, and the impact of climate change is increasingly evident. The floods and the tropical cyclones in Bangladesh, the coastal erosions in Fiji, the floods in Australia, the coral bleaching in the Maldives, and many others remind us constantly that climate change is the reality and we can no more ignore it. But what we can also no more ignore and deny is that climate change is clearly influenced by human activities, by our action. We have to come to terms with that. We cannot just leave this to destiny to dictate. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in its ongoing 5th assessment report, concluded that there is a clear human influence on climate change, and that it is extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of observed increase in global temperature since the mid-20th century. This is undeniable. Mr. President, dear friends, with 1 billion international tourists crossing borders every year, 1 billion opportunities are created, or 1 billion disasters could be committed. It is all up to us. Today, travel and tourism is both a vector and a victim of climate change. It is a vector of climate change because we have to admit it is contributing to the climate change. UNWTO research shows that tourism accounts for 5% of the global carbon emission and the footprint. 5%. They're not 20%, they're not 50%, they're 5%. But they're 5% too many. 3% out of which comes from transportation, and the rest comes from accommodation and other activities. But tourism is also a victim of climate change. Rising sea levels, coastal erosions, loss of biodiversity threaten the future of our very same industry that we're trying to promote, particularly in areas such as the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Indian Ocean, or the Pacific Islands, all of which have been identified as hotspots by most likely negatively affected by the climate change. Today, we gather to discuss how can we best respond to the call on tourism sector to cut down its greenhouse emissions, while continuing to contribute to in a decisive manner to economic growth. This is very important. We cannot halt human activity, progress and growth, and at the same time take this as an excuse. Growth, infrastructure, development on one hand, sustainability, protection and preservation on the other hand are not a zero-sum game. The growth of human activity, the progress of human activity, when well, will lead to a better world, a more healthy world and a more protected world. We should never ever be afraid of growth, progress. We should embrace it, manage it and deal with it the right way. We are meeting here today to discuss how best we can make tourism a driver of sustainable development and a fight against climate change. May I, Mr. President, before I hand it to the real experts, highlight just two key issues which I trust can help set the scene to our discussions. One, tourism relies on climate and nature for its sustainable development. It is its natural capital. Wise, intelligent businesses do not consume their capital. We must have a feeling and a need to protect this capital. Many tourism destinations and operators are dependent on climate as their principal attraction. Sun and sea, winter sports holidays, every other individual biodiversity and wildlife attraction depends on the preservation of our environment. These resources are extremely sensitive to climate. Changing climate will have profound consequences on tourism flows. We have a responsibility to protect them. We need to advance our response to climate change if we are to have a successful and resilient industry that we all represent here. Two, tourism can be a driver in the fight against climate change. 1 billion international tourists and 5 billion domestic tourists can make a big difference. Every small action can be multiplied by a billion. If 1 billion international travelers decide that no, they are not going to change the sheets in their beds or the towels in their hotels, or embark on very irresponsible behavior wherever they go, they can change the world. Multiply that by 1 billion and you can see the impact and the effect. We can be a force for good, and we intend to be that way. In 2007, UNWTO held a very important meeting in Davos, Switzerland, on tourism and climate change, and 4 main items were identified. 1, the emission of greenhouse emissions from the tourism sector, especially from the transport, must be curbed. 2, tourism businesses must embark on an adaptation process. Destinations must prepare themselves for climate change. 3, new technologies must be utilized for the improvement and the accomplishment of this mission. And 4, we need to secure the financial resources to assist the poorer regions and countries in the process of mitigation, and we cannot make them pay the price that the richer societies have committed in the term of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few thoughts that I wanted to share with you. The debate about climate change is not a debate about the planet and the economy only. It's a debate about people as well. Any objectives we might set for development will mean nothing if the planet and the people's livelihood continue to be put at danger and at risk. It is the planet and its people that should be considered, and not just a dialogue between an economic process and an process. In conclusion, Mr. President, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that the framework of the discussions today gives us a clear and necessary tools to move forward, setting to advance our response to climate change. The recent crisis, Mr. President, financial crisis, economic crisis, food crisis, energy crisis, highlighted the many limitations of the current development model that the world has been living in. And that is why in 2009 the United Nations called for a new development growth model. We called it the green economy. And I quote from the report, the green economy is the results of the improved human well-being and social equity while significantly reducing environmental risks and ecological scarcities. This is what we should be aiming for. Given tourism's size and reach and magnitude and prospects, even small changes towards greening can have significant impact. But to drive these actions, the sector needs the right policies and the right investments to position sustainability at the heart of tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, we are confident that the future of the Philippines is a bright one. We have seen that, we have sensed it firsthand. We're also confident that tourism is a very important part of the future of the Philippines. This is an industry that not only creates jobs, generates income, it is an industry that celebrates everything that is beautiful in life, everything that we respect, everything that we cherish. I would dare to say that it's not only more fun in the Philippines, we even feel better in the Philippines. We are better people when we travel, and we definitely are ourselves more fun in the Philippines. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, Dr. Rifai.